Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order for the Dudley Charlton Regional School District. It is Wednesday, January 11th, and it's 7 p.m. I have some friends with me from Heritage School who will be helping us with the Pledge of Allegiance today. I have Andrew, Stiles, and Cadence. So could we all stand, and they're going to lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Great, and we will have a moment of silence. Tonight we're going to have a moment of silence for Miss Rhonda Keelan. How do I say the last name? I'm sorry.
Killanen.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
I didn't
Killanen,
know.
thank you. She devoted over 20 years to our district in the Department of Special Education and was affectionately known as Mrs. K. And we just recently learned that Mr. John Canavan passed away recently. He was our former superintendent, our first superintendent of schools for Dudley Charlton, so we also want to think about him tonight as well. So we'll take a moment of silence. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to go to the first order of business, which would be moving over. We have a presentation by the Heritage Elementary School on our impact program, and our principal is going to come and introduce everyone.
I'll give a quick introduction to the program. We're going to highlight our impact program, which is a program that was started over 17 years ago, when a group of specialists decided we needed a program to kind of help kids get off to a good start to their day. There was a need where students were just struggling throughout the day because the day didn't start in a positive manner. This program, as I said, it couldn't have been done without Mrs. Moran here, who, and I'm sure she'll talk about the other staff that originated this program. It runs, they go downstairs, they're with Ms. Moran and a couple staff, and do crafts, do some movement activities, just socialize. You'll hear them explain that a little bit, and it just proves to be very successful day after day, and allows the students really to feel good about themselves as they start their day. And the effect it has, we can't measure it. There's no tool that can measure how much this program has, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Mrs. Moran, who is in charge of the impact program.
Thank you. It's hard to believe that it was 17 years ago when this was created. My partners were Lorinda Allen, who was a music teacher at the time, and Dave Deremian, phys ed teacher, and the three of us were just sitting, and we had to just find something. And this is the program that our principal, John Prouty, we talked to him about it, and he loved it. He said, let's take it to the school committee. And the school committee has been supporting us, my group, for 17 years, and I do appreciate that. The principals over the years, all of them have been in great support of this program. Right now, I have Mrs. Anne-Marie Clem that is a team member with me, and also Miss Patty Harkin. So there's three of us. This year, we have the most kids with a total of 23. 13 second graders, 7 third graders, and 3 fourth graders. And how they get part of this program is that about the second or third week of school, I send a referral to the teachers, and they decide to refer their students that they feel that this program will help them. And sometimes the kids come and it's only 10 minutes, but you know, every minute is important because of the support that I've gotten through their families, through the teachers, and they say, this is just great. This is helping them start their day. They know that we care about them, and whatever's going on, they make friends, and they're ready to start their day. And they're not the only ones that start their day positive. It starts our day positive to be with them in the morning. And like I said, whenever they get off the bus or if they're get rides, they come right to my room, they put all their stuff against the wall. If they have breakfast, they grab breakfast, they come down, they eat, and we do little crafts. And one of them, I forget which one of them, is going to tell you a little bit of a craft that we made for the residents of Masonic Home. And we hope before the year's out that we get a chance to visit them, because that has been something that we've been able to do, but with COVID and a lot of other restrictions, we haven't been able to do that. So I'm hoping before the end of the year that we are able to go and visit them, because it's just a great experience to watch the kids interact with the elderly and help them out. And it's very rewarding. And this program, I mean, I've been teaching for almost 30 years. This is one of the most important parts of it. And again, without the support, it wouldn't keep happening. And it's 17 years and hopefully go on for a lot more. So without any more further ado, I would like to, Andrew is going to introduce himself and say a little bit about Impact. You're up, Andrew.
Hi, my name is Andrew Davis. I am in Mrs. Duval's 3rd grade classroom. Going to Impact every morning helps me start my day. One of my favorite activities is game day every Friday.
Okay, we'll have Styles.
Thank you, Andrew.
My name is Styles Loans, and about Impact is that I love Fridays because it's Friday and Friday is game day, and I like to have a ton of fun. And every single day I like to see Miss Morin, Miss Plum, and Miss Harkins. And I like to start my day off so it's nice and fresh.
Thank you, Styles.
Good, Cadence.
Hi, my name is Cadence Atherton, and I am in Miss Garceau's 3rd grade class. One of the activities we did this year was to make wreaths for the residents of Masonic Home. This group also gives me a chance to make new friends.
Thank you, Cadence.
Thank you.
One of the, and
Go ahead.
I'll finish with, yeah, when you come in, I know a lot of principals like to highlight something that they've created, they've brought in. Sometimes you just need to stay out of the way of something good. And I think that was my best choice right here.
Thank you. And again, thank you for all your support to keep this program going.
Madam Chair, I attended an end-of-the-year event last year, and I was just so impressed with Ms. Morin and Ms. Clem and the staff that really gets involved, and all the students and their parents were invited in as well for the end of the year, and it was a fabulous event. It's a great program. When we talk about SEL or social emotional learning, Dudley Charlton was way ahead of the curve 17 years ago in providing this type of program. So congratulations to them and continued support and work. And students, great job tonight.
Great job.
Thank
Does
you.
anybody have any questions for them? I have a question. Let's see. What's your favorite activity to do there? You said play a game, but what game?
Sorry?
Sorry, you like to play sorry? Yes. What color do you like to be?
Red.
I like blue. Cadence, what did you say?
I said I like to be yellow and sorry.
Yeah, we could play a good game. What about you?
I like to play Connect 4.
Oh, you know, someday I'm going to visit you guys. We'll have,
You
we'll have some
should.
challenges.
We're
Thank you
there
so
every
much
morning.
for coming.
You guys did
Thanks for
great.
having us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for having
thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
You guys get to go home and go to bed now.
Nice job, everyone.
I'll just give them a minute just to make sure. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda, we have the Auburn Elks Lodge number 2118 grant presentation.
Madam Chairman, before I invite them up, I'd like to just present to you what the grant was. I know that I've shared this with you and shared at one of our school committee meetings. But we have been working with Charlton resident Bill Rowland with the Auburn Elks on a grant proposal, and we really appreciate the support of Auburn Elks Lodge 2118 for some grant items. Some things that, don't typically, they weren't in the budget, and we were looking for, through the year, you look for things that are kind of, needs that we have within our district, and we can't thank Auburn Elks enough for this. It's a $5,000 grant, and the grant will support, as submitted for the Elks and through their approval process, a Circles curriculum for the Director of People Personnel Services, Mr. Robert Bergeron. Unfortunately, Mr. Bergeron couldn't be here this evening, but the Circles curriculum is designed to teach students social and relationship boundaries, interpersonal skills, and relationship-specific social skills in an easy-to-understand format. The Circles curriculum would be utilized in our middle and high school special education programs to support children who need direct instruction in the area of social skills development. So that's a value of $1,399. Next is through Principal Darren Elwell. He is starting the Essentials of Firefighting for the next semester, and the Elks is supporting the resources for this. Principal Elwell has collaboratively worked with the fire department, the Dudley Fire Department, Chief Kokonowski, and Assistant Chief Kanicki. Did I say that correctly? Huh?
I think it's Knitsky.
Knitsky have been working with Principal Elwell, and they are prepared to start the course. The total cost for this course is $2,295. That's the resources. That includes a book as well as a workbook. So the book will continue, but the workbook at a modest amount of $38 will have to be purchased as the course runs more than once. But we really appreciate the Elks and their support in starting this innovative idea and innovative course for Shepherd Hill Regional High School. And then the remaining balance is, as you know, we've been training in Alice this year. And working with our Alice trainers, we talked about the initial cost of Go Buckets within the classrooms. So we are very excited that the Elks is going to support our initial investment in Go Buckets. Go Buckets are those buckets in the classrooms that you fill with certain supplies or entities to help in the event that there is an active shooter or a lockdown situation. So we really appreciate their help in us investing in those. That's an initial cost of $1,306. This evening from the Elks, and I will ask them to come up and we'll get a picture taken. And this evening we have Hannah to your right and Sam to your left sitting down, correct? Did I get it right this time? Okay, good. Practice makes permanent. They are from they're yearbook editors, and they will help us by taking a couple of pictures this evening. And if somebody at this table, Mr. Matthew, maybe you could borrow one, not borrow, but use one of their devices to take a picture of the group from the Elks, okay? But here with Bill Rowland, is Steve Blaze, Karen Blaze, Stephen McGregor, and Linda Warner to be part of this photography and dedication of this grant check to the Dudley Charlton Regional School Committee. So congratulations to Darren and to Director Bergeron, and for our Alice trainers as well.
Wonderful.
So I would welcome you to come up and present. You have to get in the picture.
Okay.
Principal Elwell, do you mind getting in the picture? Alice trainers, do you mind getting in the picture? Where would you like? Where are they? You always go with the photographer.
Good lighting.
One picture with this, so we have it in that.
That's all you look for.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, you got it? Yeah, right in the middle. That's heavy then.
Yeah, it's a solid shot.
The check.
Everybody in?
We all in? We're good? Good. Okay. All right. Now without the checks.
The real one, the one that makes the deposit out.
Well, the money guy's taking the photos, so. What's that?
Thank
There
you
go.
so much.
Thank you so much. I really
Our pleasure.
appreciate it. We enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And thanks for the opportunity. That's what we're all about. I was out with Phil. Thank you. Reminiscing of days of middle school. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. But thank you so much. You're welcome. Take care.
Okay. Okay, and then moving on with our agenda, we have the Shepherd Hill Regional High School Principals Award and the Superintendent's Award of Academic Excellence. So if we can have Principal Elwell come up.
I was gonna go
Superintendent-
first.
You're gonna go first?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Superintendent Lamarche.
Do you mind, Abby, do you mind if you come up and sit at the table for a minute while I read your letter?
Come on, I had the three little ones up. You could do it.
So this is Abby Hill. She is a Shepherd Hill Regional High School senior. And as I presented the Superintendent's Academic Excellence Award each year, I do write a letter, and that is included. You will receive this envelope with the letter that I'm reading this evening, as well as a gift card for Amazon, because everybody likes a gift card for Amazon, and a certificate for this award as well, okay? All right, I had the pleasure of meeting with Abby last week, which was great. So, capturing Abby in print, here it is. Are we ready? To the Dudley Charlton School Committee and Dudley Charlton community, I present the 2022-2023 Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Certificate of Academic Excellence Award to Shepherd Hill senior Abby Hill. Abby Hill is a dynamic young woman who I am convinced will be a welcomed addition to college campuses of her choice. Abby is an established Shepherd Hill student who consistently and continuously exhibits her potential to everything she wants to be. Abby sets goals for herself and is determined to succeed. She has a mature work ethic and is committed to meet all levels of achievement. Abby is an accomplished and capable academic scholar as exhibited through her studies here on the Hill. With her commendable AP schedule of studies, Abby has also received highest average awards in mathematics, world history, English, and she's also the recipient of the Flora Netata de Español Award. I think I did okay with that. As a Shepherd Hill student with an average of 97 or better in Spanish 4. She is a longstanding member of the National Honor Society and is the recipient of the J.S. Lim MIT Award for Excellence in Mathematics. Yes, Abby is the top-ranked student in the class of 2023. But uniquely, she is empowered to challenge life norms with her aptitude. As a freshman, her technological studies piqued her interest and rooted her proclivity to advance her mastery in computer science. She understands the disproportionate gender bias in the field of computer science, but she expects to make a significant impact as a powerful and intelligent woman. In addition, Abby embraces the challenge to defy the stereotypes and generalizations of cheerleading. As a captain and multi-season Shepherd Hill cheerleader, she has established her leadership and accepted awards as a Mid-Wachusett Academic All-Star. In conclusion, Abby has a heightened sense of her goals and is deemed to be someone to watch over time. With that said, I am privileged and proud to present this year's Superintendent's Academic Excellence Award to Miss Abby Hill. Respectfully, Stephen Lamarche. Congratulations. Congratulations. We're going to take some photos after the principal's board. And not that I have to point it out, but the letter in the packet had 2 typos in it, but I fixed them before I presented this award to Abby, just for those of you who read along in the letter, so. And now,
Now, Principal Elwell.
Good evening. As many of you know, this year we celebrate Shepherd Hill's 50th anniversary. And I think it's entirely fitting that we kick off this year of celebration by recognizing two students this evening whose achievements have contributed to the school's legendary culture of excellence. As principal of Shepherd Hill, I'm so proud to recognize Jacob Broder, whose academic achievements have earned him a weighted GPA in excess of 4.38 to date, with time to go. In addition to an impressive list of honors classes, Jacob has availed himself of a variety of rigorous advanced placement courses at Shepherd Hill, including AP Computer Science A, AP Statistics, AP English Language, AP Physics 1, AP Seminar, AP Calculus BC, AP Computer Science Principles, and AP Research. Needless to say, Jacob is not averse to a challenge. That is a list that I couldn't memorize, let alone coursework that I could conquer. As you would also expect, Jacob is the recipient of the John and Abigail Adams MCAS Scholarship. And beyond the classroom, Jacob has participated in the Model United Nations, having earned a Gavel Award and academic decathlon, placing 5th in regionals speech during his junior year. Jacob currently serves as class treasurer, and he also serves on the yearbook and prom committees. In the community, Jacob's work ethic and character are on full display through his involvement with the National Honor Society. As the current president of the Shepherd Hill chapter, most recently, Jacob spearheaded efforts to raise more than $3,000 as part of the annual Thanksgiving food drive, providing more than 50 meals for local families and organizations. In addition, Jacob worked with his National Honor Society peers to collect toys for children in need in the local communities prior to the holidays. And yet, somehow, Jacob still has some time left in his schedule to work toward completion of his Eagle Scout project at the local YMCA. So, in recognition of his scholarship, service, and character, it's my privilege to present Jacob Broder the 2023 Principal's Academic Excellence Award.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess so that we can have some pictures, and we will be back. Okay. Okay, moving on with the agenda, we're gonna go into the consent agenda items. Does anybody have any of those items that they want brought out of the consent agenda? No? Hearing none, I would move to approve. I'd move to take ask for approval of the consent agenda items. A motion?
I do want to say one thing.
You do.
I'm sorry. I just gotta pull it up. I didn't have it
That's
pulled
okay.
up. The minutes of December 14th. I did watch it, but we did make a point of, since we weren't gonna do like the Google Doc of the things that we were doing to get to those
Yep.
goals, I find like the last paragraph that encapsulates what was being said that school committees were doing is a little vague, and I think just because we were using that as our evidence of how we're moving forward, that we should probably go back and get it a little bit more detailed.
Okay, why don't we take the minutes out and table them for now and move them to the next meeting or the next month? Does that sound good? And we'll go back to them? What?
Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
I would,
Yep.
first of all, I just want to identify that we have a new person doing the minutes now.
Okay,
So, and that's not an issue, but I just wanted to say that in case there's anything in there. But she and I both looked at that paragraph, so I would respectfully ask school committee to look at that and see what they believe should be recorded for that. Because there wasn't a written report and there was nothing pinpointed, so.
Thank you.
So I just,
well, why don't we take them out of the consent agenda items for the moment, and we will just move forward with the consent agenda items for approval of the warrants and policy IJOA, out-of-state travel. Okay? Do I hear a motion to approve items B and C of the consent agenda? So moved by Pansick, second by Jean. Okay? Thank you. And discussion? No, we have no discussion on consent agenda, sorry. All those in favor? And it's unanimous.
Okay.
4-0.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to the minutes of the regular meeting, if we go back to, you were talking about item G on the last page? Okay, so, on the update of the 22-23 school committee goals, we have progress towards the 2022-2023 school committee goals was discussed by the school committee members. Opportunities for better and continued communication, accessibility of information for the community, and implementation of feedback was discussed across the board, okay? The 2022-2023 school committee goals can be found at the end of the minutes document. And did anyone feel that anything else should be added to that?
I guess I don't fully understand what you were looking for.
Okay, so when we, so going back to the summer, and when we were talking about goals and we were talking about how would we document said goals of the progress and the work that we were doing towards those, like how would we find our evidence for it? And we talked about like maybe having a shared Google Doc that we could put up, but then people didn't want to do that, so then it would be, well, we'd have it reflected in the minutes because then we would talk about it during the school committee meeting. So that's kind of what came as a consensus from that conversation. So I was just wondering if we're still doing, like, how are we showing that? Like, how are we putting our metrics on it?
Okay, so that's a bigger conversation, not about the minutes.
But the last conversation we had was that it would be reflected in the minutes during how we were saying. So if we're not, which is totally fine, so either the minutes are great and we need to do an extra step for ourselves as a school committee, or we need to adjust the minutes slightly to reflect what was actually being said during that moment.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna table this for now. I think we'll hold it, and not table it, but I'll just hold it off to the next meeting, because I think I need more members to read through it and look and see what they think. But I agree that we may need to go back and have a better discussion about the goals. Yes. Okay, so let's hold that off for now. And moving on to communications. Does anyone have communications?
I have one.
Yep.
This has kind of been an ongoing question, but I did bring it up to Superintendent LaMarche recently, and I had a citizen reach out recently again. There was just concern about the admission process and registration across the schools. I know there's been a few issues coming up, so I just wanted to mention that someone had reached out about that process, and it's kind of an ongoing issue, so,
But, Madam Chair, without specificity, it's tough to address.
yeah.
That's a generalization.
I know, I just want to mention that it was brought up again, so.
And I will respectfully ask for specificity so we can address any
So
individual
the
issue.
two schools that were affected were Dudley Middle School and Shepherd Hill.
And can you explain to me, you said admission and what?
So registration into the district as a new student and proof of residency.
Okay.
But again, without specificity, it's tough to address that.
And I don't even have a student's name or anything like that, but,
We'd be happy to look into
yeah.
anything that's brought to our
Do you
attention.
have the contact of the person that talked to you?
Mm-hmm,
Could you go back to them and ask
Yeah.
them?
yeah,
Because
Reach out to the principals?
sure.
Great.
that would be great. Okay, thank you. Is there any more communication? No. Okay. We'll move on to the student representative report, and I believe Principal Elwell is giving that report tonight? Yes? Okay. Come
Some
on
form
down.
of it, Madam Chair.
Or some form of it, yes.
So unfortunately, Olivia's under the weather this evening, so she sent some prepared comments to me. I will present on her behalf, but certainly not with the same gusto that Olivia typically provides in her reports. So from her perspective, this is her voice. We've had a successful drama club production last week on Friday and Saturday. The Shepherd Hill Drama Club produced a night of radio plays, and it was also a collaboration with the Shepherd Hill Improv Club, who performed in between different acts. In the moment, they provided advertisements. Show Choir has an upcoming home show the first week of February. Midterms start this Friday on January 13th and run until January 19th. Period 1 midterm will occur this Friday. Periods 2 and 3 will occur on Tuesday, and periods 4 and 5 will occur on Wednesday, with periods 6 and 7 occurring on Thursday, weather permitting. There are backup plans in the event that we experience winter weather. There is a half-day on Friday for professional development. It is a half-day for students. We obviously do not have school on Monday in recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Students will begin their second semester classes on Monday, January 23rd. The Shepherd Hill Ski Club has also started up, and as of this week, has taken their first trip to Mount Wachusett. They will be going once a week for the next 6 weeks. We essentially have a full bus full of students who are taking advantage of this opportunity. I'm told conditions were excellent earlier in the week, which is good to hear. And the United Nations is having open discussions in room 216, I should say Model United Nations, not the United Nations, although we'd be happy to host them here at Shepherd Hill if they're looking for a location. The Model United Nations will be having discussions in room 216 around global issues such as territory taking in the South China Sea and a variety of other current events. Just to expand on what Mr. LaMarche mentioned earlier regarding our fire science and firefighting pilot, I do appreciate the partnership that we've developed with the Dudley Fire Department, the chief and the assistant chief in particular, and also the support of the Elks who were here earlier in terms of helping us to purchase the classroom kits and materials that we'll need for the pilot offering. This is something that is important and that we want to continue to build relationships with our town departments, but at the same time, be thinking about how we can maximize our resources and put innovative electives in place that expose students to new and different opportunities. And I do think there is interest. We've had over 20 students express interest in the class. Depending on the period in which we run the class next semester, we'll likely have between 10 and 12 students, which is a healthy number for a pilot. And then beyond this next semester, we'll look at what this could look like moving forward. But we're very grateful for the partnership with the fire department, and we hope that not only will it be beneficial for our students in experiencing something new and different, but at the same time, obviously, fire departments are always in need of volunteer firefighters and EMT recruits, and perhaps we can establish that pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Chair, before I start, I just wanted to make sure that Hannah and Sam know that they don't have to stay the entire meeting.
We don't have the whole committee
The whole
here right
committee's not
now.
here, so I don't think that's going to happen, so, okay? Maybe at a future meeting, maybe the February 8th meeting? Oh, everything's due January 30th?
We have a meeting on the 25th.
Yep.
If you want to come on the 25th, I can try to see, our meeting starts at 7, right?
7 o'clock at Charlton Middle School, yes.
Maybe if we can have, like, if you want to come at 6:45, would that work for the committee members that are here? Or even, like, very close to 7? Okay. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome to stay if you want. All right, moving on.
Madam Chair, I do have a couple of items to report. I appreciate the moment of silence for Miss Rhonda Killinan, and also for John Canavan. There are 2 quotes in our conference room, district office conference room, that are attributed to John Canavan on June 17th, 1988, and I'd like to share those with the community because they are something that we do read and look at in our conference room. The only reason that any of us are here, be we administrators, teachers, or school committee members, is because of the boys and girls who need this education. Again, that was in 1988. Very often in negotiations and other considerations, it is easy to forget that the schools don't exist for the benefit of adults, they exist for the benefit of students. Again, attributed to the first ever superintendent of the Dudley Charlton Regional School District, Mr. John Canavan, who unfortunately has passed away this week. I'm also want to share with the committee, and pleased to share with you, if those have been watching, our own Miss Erin Glenn, who has been the school committee secretary. Her and her husband Sam have welcomed their son Owen Wallace into the world on Sunday, December 25th, 2022. So congratulations to Erin and her husband. I am also announcing this evening that the Dudley Charlton Regional School District Treasurer, Ms. Carol Barron, has informed us of her pending retirement. We will now post the position for Treasurer of the Dudley Charlton Regional School District, and Ms. Barron has stated that she will help us with the transition moving forward. But we certainly wish Ms. Barron well with her retirement. And that is a school committee appointed position. So we will post it, we'll conduct the interviews, and we'll bring a recommendation to the committee. On the 4th of January, after school, the Shepherd Hill Regional High School track team had a medical incident that occurred during their practice. The student is okay and has returned to school. I was able to observe the actions of our staff, and I choose to publicly acknowledge them this evening. I'd like to acknowledge trainer Chelsea Stafford as well as athletic director Jim Scanlon for their quick actions and decision-making. Additionally, winter track coaches Nicole Fossis and Len Harmon were excellent and provided care for the athlete as well as the entire winter track team because of this incident. We also recognize the town of Dudley first responders for their care that was provided as well. The family was contacted immediately, and the parent was able to ride in the ambulance with the student to the hospital. And also, athletic director Jim Scanlon did provide a communication or message to every member of the winter track families regarding the incident. But again, publicly, I'd like to acknowledge Chelsea Stafford, our trainer, athletic director Jim Scanlon, winter track coaches Nicole Fossis and Len Harmon for their excellent care of our students at Shepherd Hill Regional High School. This evening, I want to share that Charlton Middle School teacher, Miss Katie Matthews, was nominated to participate in what is titled Special Wants. Special Wants is kind of like a crowd funding opportunity, and where they identify where a teacher from an ILC, Intensive Learning Center, can submit and be nominated, and then from that nomination, they can put in what their wants are. And then what is called angels either support their wants or provide them support. If you recall, Miss Rachel Lemansky and Miss Tammy Martin Allison received a grant from DCEF and then a further grant to support sensory classrooms at Charlton Elementary School and Heritage Elementary School. Miss Katie Matthews put in for a sensory room at Charlton Middle School. through this particular program called Special Wants. I am pleased to tell you that everything that she submitted, thousands of dollars worth of resources, have been funded by Angels and have been arriving to her home and to our school. And she is now establishing and setting up a sensory classroom at Charlton Middle School. So congratulations for Miss Katie Matthews for going the extra mile. Dudley Elementary School Principal Kelly True received a $600 grant from the Dudley Cultural Council to support Dudley Elementary School's Positive Playground. The grant will help fund blacktop murals and also painted fun student activities on the blacktop. So congratulations, Principal True, for that grant. And we thank the relationship we have with the Dudley Cultural Council, too. I'm sorry?
That's a school council initiative.
It's also a school council initiative. I'm also pleased to share that Director Bob Bergeron and I are scheduled to attend the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, CPAC, Coffee and Conversation, Wednesday, February 1st, 2023, at the Sturbridge Coffee Roasters Charlton location at 9 a.m. We look forward to coffee and conversation. Director Bergeron is definitely the draw. I'm just the sidekick going along with him, to be clear. As a member, as a reminder, the Dudley Charlton Education Foundation has put aside Saturday, April 1st, 2023, for an extraordinary award and recognition ceremony called Heroes Among Us. We had a board meeting on Monday with the Dudley Charlton Education Foundation, and they were working through identifying at least 10 recipients of our community to receive an award called Heroes Among Us. The event will take place in Southbridge, at the Southbridge I'm sorry?
Hotel, I think.
The host hotel conference.
Yes, yeah. I have Sturbridge Host in my head when I said Southbridge Host, so yeah. Yep, and they're looking at somewhere around 100, they're expecting 150 guests. And we also worked on that some of the grant recipients were looking, DCE, Dudley Charlton Education Foundation, is looking for them to share some of the grants and the outcomes from the grants at that ceremony as well. So we had a very productive meeting. They had a very productive meeting that I participated in, and Dr. Ackerman did on Monday evening. But we look forward to the April 1st, 2023 recognition ceremony, Heroes Among Us. It is a ticket price is $75. It's also a silent auction, and it is a fundraiser for DCEF. I shared at the last meeting that Shepherd Hill Regional High School alumni and starting right guard for the Atlanta Falcons, Chris Lindstrom, was selected by the Falcons as their Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. Additionally, Chris selected the Friends of John Pierre Student Fund, Be Better, as his My Cause, My Cleats. And now to add to that, to this exceptional list of who Dudley Charlton Regional School District alumni Christopher Lindstrom is, he was also selected to his first NFL Pro Bowl this year at 25 years old. We recognize and congratulate Chris Lindstrom, his family, and our community for such. And then in my report, which is an ongoing item, is the school committee fiscal 2024 budget priorities. And that concludes the superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you. We were going to move on to public comment, but do we have any public comment? No? We don't have the public here. And I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to need we need to do a 5-minute recess really quick. Okay? So can I move to recess? All those in favor? Thank you. I don't know.
You don't need a,
Okay, thank you.
you can just, as the chair, you can always move.
Okay. Okay.
And Dean's there too.
And Dean's there too. Okay, we're gonna move on. Can I just ask before we get back, I was trying to move this to the end. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're back in session. I appreciate your patience. We're going to start under new business with item B, the fiscal year 2024. Stephen LaMarche.
Madam Chair and School Committee, I didn't, there's no written report for this evening. It's part of an ongoing conversation. I know we've been sharing a lot of information with you as a committee. You participated in meetings. You saw an email that was sent out on Monday to all boards, to call an all boards meeting, which is January 25th at Charlton Middle School at 7 p.m. We will post for that. We're not posting today, because things could change between now and the 25th. We will certainly post it in a timely fashion to talk about FY24 and beyond, as the email indicated. So I wrote down some notes to discuss as we've been working on this, not only Mr. Matthew and myself and Dr. Ackerman and Director Bergeron, but all the principals. We've been working on this, and I just want to prepare us for the 25th, because at the 25th, I am hoping to present our FY24 budget and where we stand with that. As you know, at the Board of Selectmen's meeting in Dudley, we did share our preliminary numbers. If we were to take in all of the things, not only the things that we're compelled to pay for, but also the things that we've worked with our principals to determine what are the immediate needs of our district moving forward. It's a very difficult conversation, and the feedback we received after that, and that includes myself, is kind of an OMG, oh my God, how are we going to be able to pay for this? Because quite simply, if we just look at our items that we're compelled to pay for next year, which I would call bills, we're looking at roughly $2.7 million alone just for those bills going into next year. Mm-hmm. So it really makes you swallow hard because we know that there are other needs in the district. We've heard them at this meeting. We heard our auditors talk about there should be additional district office staff in the finance department. We heard from Director D'Arcangelo that we are not at any recommended level as far as staffing for technology within our particular district. We are ending a cycle of technology purchases that requires a reinvestment for those purchases. And we have building-based needs working with our building principals. And those are all a struggle right now to even consider, given that we have, and we're basically compelled to increase our budget by $2.7 million alone just to cover bills, just to cover the increases that we've talked about here. Transportation, which we'll talk about this evening, our utility costs, the 14% increase in out-of-district tuitions. Mr. Matthews been working hard with our state and other districts to determine where they're landing. Is this just unique to Dudley Charlton school system? And it's not. The average increase that Mr. Matthews getting back out of 50 districts so far is 6.25%. That's the average increase to an operating budget. And some of these are communities, towns, where it's tough to discern whether the town has a certain ownership. Like, for example, us as a regional school, we are our own municipality in so many ways. We take care of everything for retirements, for benefits, for health insurance, for all of that. Where if you're a town school, a lot of times that's built into a shared cost with the municipality, and it's not reflected in your overall budget increase for a school system. But for us, it's all reflected. Now, if you go back and you weigh what we typically get for an assessment increase, and typically, last year was the best year since I've been here, but we typically get for an assessment increase is 2.5 for the town, but it's 1.5 for us as a district. Well, 1.5 is just not gonna cut even just to cover these bills. And we've had to reduce over the years. And there's still risks out there. We're gonna talk about the risk about transportation and school committee. We're really going to ask for school committee to give us the direction. One day we'll call it caucus, because that's the word of the day out there in politics. But we'll caucus and say, should we take the risk and recommend to school committee that we should go out to bid again? Or should we just go with what we know? So that's where we're landing with the transportation costs. But no matter what, it's ballooned, it's huge, it's bigger. And there's a couple of tired messages that we're all used to hearing out there, and the community doesn't want to hear anymore as well. You know, things like low per pupil expenditures. Nobody wants to hear again that we're the lowest in the state when it comes to our district office. Nobody wants to hear that, but it's true. It's a fact. It's not hyperbole. It's a fact, but nobody's going to want to hear it because it's a tired message. So it really can't be part of our discussion moving forward. You know, we don't want to hear that declined enrollment should mean an automatic reduction to our budget. Declined enrollment, as an example, if we've taken our transportation and over the years, we've gone from 46 buses to 39 buses. But the cost of transportation is doubled in that time. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but just, somebody put in $1 million increase to our current transportation. They put in that bid. So, you know, decline enrollment doesn't mean the cost of business has gone down too. And we all can admit as a district and a community that our student needs are higher now than they've ever been coming out of the pandemic. Whether it's academic, whether it's social emotional, our needs are higher. There's a value to that. There's a cost to that. So the cost of doing business is more expensive no matter what. But again, those are messages. Those messages around declining enrollments, low per pupil. You know, those are tied up in this. You know, I've got my opinion on that, and I'm not going to. It's not going to make a difference in my decision. So we have to figure out how to land on a decision for us as a district that's best for the district, but also meets the needs of the school. I've always said over the years, one of the things that was the hardest thing for me to learn as a teacher was to balance the needs of my students and that of the district or the school. In my early years, I would have knocked down a wall for any kid at any expense. Give me $1 million. This kid needs $1 million. I want it tomorrow. But, you know, I got my hand slapped several times for that because there's a need of the district as well. So I had to reevaluate the need for the student, and is there a way for me to meet that need without it being always a cost? Well, we have to figure out as a district, how are we going to meet the needs of our students without adding millions and millions of dollars to the towns? Because that's just not going to work. And that needle is very hard to thread here, because this has been, you know, when we had that presentation, state aid has been flat since 2009. That didn't just happen last year, or the year before, or the year before that. That's been since 2009, state aid has been flat, which means enrollment has been declining since before then. And so this enrollment decline is not a new thing for us either. Those are some of the tired things, but there's stuff that we have to somehow come up with, threading the needle on how we can try to fix the structural issues that we deal with year after year after year in Dudley Charlton. And I'm not there yet because I need more. I need you, I need the town boards, we need the town boards, we need the communities to fix that. That can't be any one person or any one group that fixes that, because that's been a ongoing item. That is not new to this particular year, which was reflected in 2018 as well. You know, oftentimes I'm asked the question, what has changed? What has changed? And again, the cost of doing business is so much more. I don't know how else to say that. You know, I understand from the view of a community member or from a board of selectmen that if I look at my town budget and it's roughly half of the school budget, well, the school must be flush because they've got double what I have as a town. But people have to keep in mind we're two towns. We're the budget, and we are like our own municipality. We are the biggest employer in the communities, the biggest employer. And we employ a lot of Dudley Charlton residents within our particular districts. But what has changed? You know, even from 2009, 2010, what I found that has changed the most from my experience is we have become so heavily regulated as a school district that it's added so much work to us as a district. I think between 2010 and 2014, if I recall this correctly, the most regulations were passed by the legislative body in the state of Massachusetts, and they were getting to putting a moratorium on it in 2015 because they just kept coming and coming and coming. And they were unfunded. That's when the whole discussion about unfunded mandates started coming up, and there started to be some fights on the unfunded mandates. The example I believe, if I'm off, I apologize, but it was the required sanitation of music instruments. There was this whole requirement there, but there was no cost associated with it, and I think the treasurer at the time, state treasurer at the time, said the legislators have to come up with a different way to approach that. But those mandates, those regulatory mandates, kept coming and coming and coming. So I think that's something that has clearly changed over the time. But we have to be prepared earlier than ever with our budget, we have to be prepared for the 25th. I think the hardest part for us in the principals, because we want to live in pure happiness and joy, is to identify things that are reductions. If the override is unsuccessful and our bills, simply compelling bills of transportation, of contractual obligations, of utilities, of the 14% increase in our district tuitions is $2.7 million, that means we're looking at, roughly $2.7 million in reductions to a district that will struggle with finding those reductions without impacting class size, which is a school committee goal, without impacting programs, to really push us to a point where we're doing what we're required to do, which is such a horrible message, versus what we want to do. And I think that there's probably a better way for me to phrase that for the 25th, but I'm just trying to preliminarily give you all this stuff that's rattling around in my head around FY24 after all the work we've been doing since we started this endeavor this school year. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and I'd really enjoy school committee's take and discussion on this as well. Or I can talk for another 45 minutes? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Does anybody have any comments?
It's overwhelming. It's hard to know either where do you get blood from a stone, unless the state gives us more, which we don't know what that's going to be yet. I don't know how we can adjust or move things around without sacrificing a lot, and that means the kids sacrifice, and that hurts. Or the kids don't sacrifice. They're the one that they're impacted. I don't know what the answer is.
And as we've shared with you as a committee, Dudley Charlton has done an exceptional job at investing in the classroom, in teachers in the classroom, but the peripheral keeps getting scraped away, and there's no, we're looking at things that aren't going to add up to $2.7 million in the peripheral.
As an anecdote, it's funny that you say we can't get blood from a stone. When I walked into this job here about almost 8 years ago now, there was a cartoon on my desk from Superintendent Desto, and it was exactly that. The Revenue Enhancement Department, and it was get blood from a stone, and handwritten on there was Dudley Charlton. And that's what almost every budget season has been like. How do we do more with less? How do we live with less? How do we continue to perform with the high expectations while the costs of everything just continue to increase, while we remain one of the lowest spending districts in the state? When you look at the metrics that you can use to compare other districts, we're dramatically behind there. And it's not because, I don't believe it's because there's a belief that Dudley Charlton is all that unique or different. It simply has been limited revenue, and fortunately, the town of Charlton is not quite in that same position as it may have been, 8 years ago, but unfortunately, Dudley is, and there's a partnership, So from my view, I'm happy I'm not Mr. Happy Joy about the budget tonight. I'll certainly have the next 3 months to be that guy. But I think it's incredibly fortunate that we were talking about an override last year, and started this whole process, because we will not survive as a district in the manner that we currently are without some enhanced revenue greater than what we can normally expect.
And when you say, even, do more with less, having my children have gone through the district, and I couldn't complain once about the Charlton schools that I know of, and they do everything they possibly can with what they have. And you wouldn't know that they, are stretching or doing less. Every teacher does more, gives more. I would hardly believe that I didn't have a list, a school list at the end of the year, supplement the classroom. The teachers do so much. And just to have anything taken away, just, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I know what I don't want, and it's what everybody doesn't want. you know, to have anything taken away, but I don't know.
And to your point, Jamie, from a teaching and learning perspective, we have teachers that work incredibly hard, and teachers that give extra hours all the time to learn and to share with their peers for the benefit of kids. And when we talk about class sizes, when we talk about student outcomes, like those are really real conversations. And those are things that will hit home, because revenue, class size, you know, it's pretty clear that your smaller class sizes, that benefits kids. So we really have to do everything we can to, you know, to just be honest about where we are and to understand that teaching and learning is going to be impacted as well.
And to your point, Mr. LaMarche, coming off the heels of the pandemic, these children's needs are so much higher. So to leave them with even less would be detrimental to their learning. And, you know, when we hear about articles that are released in the newspapers that Shepherd Hill is not in the top 25 or whatever, we can't continue to compare our school to all these other districts that do have so much more to start with. If we continue to deprive the budget, we have to keep cutting. So, like you said, we have to cut things that we want in order to have those things that we have to have, and we have to pay those bills. So, unfortunately, if the override doesn't pass in Dudley, I think it's going to affect even beyond the district. I think it's going to affect the whole town, unfortunately. So I think that's what residents really need to think about in Dudley, is not only is how is it going to impact DCRSD, but our entire town. So.
I would like to say that it's not a new phenomenon with Dudley Charlton Regional. I mean, when I went here, it was just as teachers doing more with less, of the great environment of the camaraderie of people doing the best they can with what they had. We've never been flush, you know, ever. Right? I'm looking at, but yeah, okay. And I think people also need to stop looking, though, at the state for state monies, because the state has given us what they're going to give us. There's no extra coming to regional. We're not suddenly going to get our transportation fully funded. We're getting what we're getting, and we're going to have to try to make up the difference, or we're going to have to make cuts that hurt.
I'm not sure if we talked about this or not, but I think it's really, it's good and important that we work with our local boards.
Mm-hmm.
I think we really have, thank you for working hard to establish those relationships, and Mr. Matthew as well, because I think that's essential. We all need to work together, because they're certainly not looking at a good picture either. So we want to make sure we all work together, because it's about both towns and our kids. So, thanks. Did everybody get a chance to speak if wanted to? Okay. Do you want to move on to the next item? Do you want to just?
Well, maybe you should inform the public that we're moving this.
Oh, sure. Okay. We are going to move item C, the Dudley Charlton Regional School District Student Achievement Report, to February, just so people know. We just want to make sure that we are able to give you the best picture we can. So we're going to move that to February, and
I can do E.
you can do E. So let's skip over D and go to E.
Madam Chair and School Committee, we did have a reach out by Miss Danielle. She goes by Danny Marini. She is the environmental planner with the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. The town of Dudley is going through a open space and recreation plan committee update at this current time. I did put in the correspondence into your packet. She was not able to make it this evening, and members of the OSRP were unable to make it, but they'd be willing to come back to another meeting to talk about this, but this is regarding open space in the community of Dudley. And this was sent out to all boards in Dudley, which includes the school committee. and they were asking questions. So I've submitted to you the Dudley Open Space and Recreation Plan questions for the boards and other committees and organizations. Now, I will submit this to the Dudley principals as well to take a look at and try to provide some feedback, but I wasn't sure if you as a committee wanted to either take this on as a committee, send this to the Facilities, Capital and Facilities Subcommittee. And obviously, every question you're not going to be able to answer, but there are questions in here that you could answer. We can put in there, we can already share that we received a grant at Dudley Elementary School to enhance the positive playground. There are things like that, but, and we are working with Safer Routes to look at ways to create safer routes for kids. I don't know if that fits in this, but I will take whatever direction the committee would like to give me for the community of Dudley and for answering some of these questions.
I think at this point, why don't we have, you're suggesting which subcommittee look at it?
Safety and capital, because they really work on facilities. Or we
Yeah.
could just submit it to facilities, the director of public school facilities, Mr. Karan, to start taking a look at and trying to answer some of these questions.
Right, why don't we see which questions he's able to answer, and then follow that up with, seeing if the subcommittee has any additional knowledge for that.
Okay.
And if you have anything from your principals or whatnot, just so that we can give the most accurate
Okay.
picture we can.
The deadline is February 15th. They
Okay.
could attend a February 8th meeting if you wanted them to, but I'm not sure. I told them that I would figure out what the direction of the committee was this evening and then let them know kind of where we're going from there. So maybe they could meet with the
The subcommittee?
the subcommittee or the director of public school facilities, Mr. Joe Karan, as well.
Okay, why don't
Okay.
we see if he believes that he's able to have all this information, and if he thinks he can, then I would say let's have him meet with them,
Okay.
and then if they need further information from us, we'll go route of the subcommittee.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, is everybody okay with that? Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are gonna move on, we'll go back up to A, and I would just ask to see if we could just make sure we talk about the contract last, if that's okay? Okay, so, report of the Director of Finance and Operations, Capital Outlay, Safety Subcommittee, and the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, Director Matthew.
Thank you. If it's all right, I'll tackle utilities first. So we have received the first bills reflecting the new electricity and natural gas rates. I'm sure people at home have seen those bills as well, and hopefully the heart attacks weren't happening, with a little heads up from I think it was the October meeting of where prices were going, but I know at my house, it was very shocking, very, very shocking. Building principals have been communicating with their staff the importance of being conscious with electricity usage. It's not just a concern for FY23, but for FY24 and future budgets as well. Our broker, Competitive Energy Services, is keeping tabs on rates. If there's a sufficient dip in rates, it may be possible to blend the current contract with an extension to receive some reduced costs. But this is not a budget strategy that is going to, provide millions of dollars in savings to us. It's really just trying to hedge our bets if indeed the right opportunity comes to pass. And, there's no guarantee with where things are and where things are projecting right now for that to happen. Natural gas has gone down a bit recently, and that's where I had reached out to them on. But they did say that they're going to keep their eyes out and look for those opportunities and make a recommendation at the appropriate time if it were to present itself. Today, we did receive news from the French River Educational that the oil bid price, we're not going to go out to bid just yet based on the recommendation of CES, but we can, for budget planning purposes, expect a rate of around $3.50 a gallon. That's an 80-cent increase per gallon from our current rate, and has a value to the district, at least in terms of gallons bid of $108,000. So, unfortunately, as Superintendent LaMarche discussed for the FY24 budget, the increases that we're looking at are just so much more than we've seen in the last, 5 years, or really in many ways over the last, 20 years or so. The economy has been fairly stable in those times, but, that stability is not clear and evident and guaranteed as it was, I think, in the past, and we'll see that reflected as we talk about transportation as well. I don't know if there's any questions on utilities.
Do you have any cost estimates for savings for utilities when the new roofs are put into place?
No.
No.
No. There's expected to be some with the increased insulation, but that's not an analysis that's, done except by experts. And it
Okay.
wouldn't be the roofing experts, it'd be energy management experts.
Okay. Great.
All right. Next up, speaking of the middle school roofs, we did receive the detailed report from Russo Bar regarding the state of the 2 middle school roofs. The good news is that based on their testing, the roof deck at both schools is in fairly good condition. Again, their testing did not go through 100% of the roof. It is a representative sample, but those representative samples came back in a good way. The project is on track to have bids awarded by school committee at one of the March meetings, preferably the first one, but there's we want to just make it clear, it will be sometime in March. This will provide the successful bidder sufficient time to start the work on the roofs as soon as possible in June, with the deadline for completion prior to the start of the 2023-24 school year. I did upload the complete report and a summary report for the school committee to review on the shared school committee drive. Their recommendation was to go out to bid for an EPDM roof. We did ask them what the cost would be to bid both that and the built-up roof, which was the preferred roofing system that we had hoped to get to. Their cost estimates did put that outside of our budget range, unfortunately. But the cost to have that bidding done is about $6,000, and we did discuss that with the school safety, capital and outlay and school safety subcommittee. We had said that if it was going to be a low cost, and I think $6,000 is a low cost, that it would be something that would be preferable, just to at least have that information. Because if indeed, the roofing market itself is coming down, and we can afford the built-up roof, that would be the preferred way to go. But again, there's no guarantees, and there's no way of knowing until we actually do the bid. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions about page 72 of the report. I have it memorized like this. So.
Madam Chair, for the public, there is the, what I would call the executive summary package, which is about 7 pages. But for you as a committee, you have the entire 118-page document to peruse. We will obviously put that on our website as a document for the school committee meeting, but for tonight's meeting and for you, there is the executive summary, what I would call the executive summary that Mr. Matthew put together, and I appreciate him putting it together because 118 pages is a lot of reading. And the Safety and Capital Improvement Sub, as well as us in the office, have read through the 118 pages and did have a meeting with Russo Bar to process all of that information. But for you as a committee, you do have at least something to go at, and you can also take a look at the whole document. Okay. So as Mr. Matthews said, I wasn't sure if anyone had any questions for him about the roofs, but we are on time, we're on schedule.
The knocking is for on budget.
Yeah. I didn't say that, did
Yes, I'm the jinx.
And on budget. We are planning already for the summer to ensure that we don't have summer programming within those buildings, so that the project can be uninterrupted and be completed during the summer in preparation for opening on time for the school system.
Great.
If there are no questions, I'll move on to transportation.
Yeah, and I would say as soon as we have that those documents ready to go and we're ready to vote on that?
Oh, yeah,
If
there'll be no delay, because the sooner we can turn that around
Well-
with a vote, the sooner the contractor can make commitments.
Right, based where we are on our schedule, if we need to have a special meeting for that, we can do that, because I
Thank
think
you.
it's only gonna help make sure that our summer goes well.
Having that special meeting to approve the contract certainly expedited the process, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And if I may, Madam Chair, working with many contractors over the years, Russo Bar has been phenomenal to work with. They have crossed their Ts, dotted their Is, they're available, their timeline, they're confident with the timeline that we have set in place, and their turnaround on information. Even their turnaround from last Friday to now to try to give us, that little twist we said about putting in that other bid was instantaneous and very thorough and quick. So I have to give Russo Bar a lot of props, a lot of credit. I don't know if the kids still use props anymore, probably not. A lot of credit for working collaboratively with us and answering all of our questions and being available to us and seeing this as a very important project and giving us really good guidance for the two projects at once. And I'm not sure if we can say this, but they did recommend that we put out the bid for the entire two projects as one bid
Okay.
as well. Because they thought there were enough companies out there that would really be interested in having it as a total project.
Okay.
And be able to accomplish it too.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll move on to the update fiscal year 24 transportation contract.
Thank you. So before school committee tonight is the need for a vote to either award or not award the transportation bid to First Student, the low and responsive and responsible bidder for the FY '24 through '28 contract. This would be a 3-year fixed contract with 2 one-year district options. So by approving the contract for 5 years, we're not locking ourselves into 5 years. We're simply giving ourselves the opportunity to approve years 4 and 5 in the future. Normally, this is a very straightforward recommendation, especially when the incumbent is the low bidder. However, this round of bids came in substantially higher than predicted, and given the state of perpetual financial pressure in the district, all options must be carefully considered. More than 50% of the increase is dedicated to drivers' wages, as First Student attempts to solidify its local employee base and enters into a future collective bargaining agreement. As we are all very well aware, bus drivers are in demand, and there are more opportunities for drivers to increase their wages by driving for different districts. The largest change in the area is that the Worcester Public Schools are now running their own fleet and through their actions are helping to set a high local market rate for drivers. The district has negotiated pricing with First Student as allowed under procurement guidelines. The thought process from the state being that they are the low bidder, so they're the ones that are going to get the contract. If they decide that they would, willingly reduce their price upon request, then that doesn't violate procurement laws. As part of these negotiations, First Student's legal department was of the mindset that we could negotiate the bid language around years 2 and 5 of a fixed 2% increase. My initial reaction was that this would not be allowed as part of the, because it was part of the bid spec, not the rule of award. I did follow up with the Inspector General's 30B hotline, and it turns out that indeed we are not able to negotiate those terms, only the pricing that was the rule of award. Under the allowed areas of negotiation, I have requested that First Student reduce its pricing for the daily routes by $100,000. They have come back with an offer of a $30,000 credit, partly in year 1 and partly spread out through the rest of the contract. We did counter that and ask for a reduction of $65,000 off of the daily routes, which is essentially the cost of a bus. We did hear back from them, and they did increase their offer of credit to $50,000, spread out evenly over the course of the 5 years, so $10,000 a year. So, again, normally I'm confident in making a recommendation to school committee. You will note that there is not a recommendation in my memo, and unfortunately I struggle with one because I don't know what the right path is. Option 1 is to accept the bid. Option 2 is to reject the bid and go back out. Really, the con to accepting the bid is simply the price increase. You know, the $550,000 price increase is challenging to accept. While it may be understandable in today's market, with all of the known price drivers, besides wages, the cost of benefits, the cost of fuel. We did reintroduce the fuel escalation / de-escalation clause in the contract, you know, for obvious reasons, and, you know, given where pricing is at, you know, we had to do that. In terms of option 2, rejecting the bid, we do have the opportunity to affect pricing by making changes in the bid specs. Specifically, would we reduce the required age of the bus fleet? The current bid says that buses need to be 2020 or newer, and that has been the historic way that Dudley Charlton has approached transportation. This ensures that buses are no more than 7 years old at the end of the contract, and usually has actually given us new buses with a new contract. We could look to change that to, and you know, lower that down to 2019, which would mean that buses at the end of the contract are potentially 8 years old. Buses are regulated by the state and have regular safety inspections, so the age of the bus would not impact the safety. However, the age of the bus would impact the quality of the ride. Just as a car that is 10 years old has more creaks and rattles and things that don't work quite right, as opposed to a new car, an 8-year-old bus is going to have more creaks and rattles than a brand-new bus, or even a bus that's 5 years old. We could also look to change the percentage increases in the contract for future years. I think by reducing the age of the bus fleet, we could achieve actual savings. If we change the percentage increases in future years, we're simply spreading out the value of the contract differently. So it would lower the cost in year 1, but obviously it would increase the increases in years 2 through 5. As I indicated in my memo, the pros are to potentially reduce the cost to the district in year 1 and potentially through the life of the contract. Making the modifications to the bid listed should produce a level of savings in year 1 and potentially for the life of the contract. Cost of fuel is another factor. When we put this back out to bid, the initial state price for diesel fuel was $4.87 per gallon. As of Wednesday, January 4th, the price was $3.30. The fuel escalation, de-escalation clause calls for when prices vary greater than, I think it was 10% in this bid, from that fixed price, we would either get a credit if prices went down by more than 10%, or have to pay more to first student if prices went up by more than 10%. So having that number lower should reduce first students' fuel costs projected out over the 5 years, but may certainly impact us by having us to, by forcing us to pay a little bit more each month because the cost of the fuel, you know, remains static to where it is today. The cons of going back out to bid, I tried to spell this out as clearly as I could. Please note that the words potentially and should are bolded in the paragraph above. That's because there's no guarantee as to what would happen were the district to go back out to bid. There is certainly the potential, not likely but possible, that we would receive no bids. I have no reason to believe that First Student would take this as an opportunity to increase its overall bid costs, but there's nothing legally preventing that. You would like to think that the better nature of man still exists in 2023, and that they would hold their costs or reduce them. They do have a interest in securing the Dudley Charlton contract because they have the depot in Charlton, and they will, whether or not they have our contract going forward, they have the contract for Bay Path and Oxford Public Schools. So by having our contract, they certainly help to pay for that depot. But recognizing that we are going back out to bid, they may say, we have no need to reduce our pricing. So all of this may simply shuffle the numbers, and again, achieving any level of savings in the first year is, I think, important with where FY24 is shaping up. But with the instability in the economy, with the instability in just life, it seems like, over the last couple of years, I am not confident that any of the things that were at pretty solid 99% bets remain so. So I wish a decisive path was obvious, but I don't have one. Each of the options is fraught with concern and has the potential to be averse to the district's fiscal planning. If there was a guarantee that going back out to bid would create cost savings, then that would be the obvious recommendation, but there is no guarantee. The path has risks. The school committee needs to weigh these risks against accepting a larger than anticipated increase. There are two axioms that come to mind, and I think those things develop over the course of time because they tend to be true. The first one is that a bird in the hand beats two in the bush. And that means having a known amount may be preferable to a risk. But the other axiom that comes to mind is there's no reward without risk. No risk, no reward. And I think the going back out to bid is exactly that, a risk. Should it work out in our favor? Yes. All things being equal, 5 years ago, this would have been a no-brainer. Guys, let's go back out to bid, let's restructure, let's get the savings. There's nothing that's compelling me to say that we're going to absolutely have that, and that's why I can't give you a solid recommendation one way or another. Oh, wait, I did get to be happy, joy, guys, tonight.
Thank you. Way to end it. Okay. Does anyone have a motion to accept a particular bid, at least to start discussion?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I just wanted to know if anyone had a motion to accept a certain bid, just at least to get, like, whether
An
to
option.
accept the bid or
Right.
to reject the bid.
Yeah.
I
Which
would
option?
Make a motion to reject the bid.
You'll second, okay. And let's start discussion on that. And you can start discussion.
Oh, I can
since you made
start.
the motion. Sorry.
Let's see. I'm going to defer that for a moment and see what other people have to say.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts about that? Go ahead.
Although it's a risk, I think if we go back out to bid and we lower the age of the bus, there's no risk for safety because the buses are inspected every 6 months and are deemed safe to be transporting students. Yes, they're a year older, but I hope that the bid would come in lower if we allow for student or anyone else to use buses that are 2019 or older. When we're facing such increases, it would be nice to have the newest buses, but it's not necessary, I would say. So that's kind of my thought process as to why we should go back out to bid, in hopes that we would have different numbers presented with that change.
I think I have a couple questions for you. I guess my concern is that if right now we have it tied to $4.87 a gallon, correct?
Yep.
And if it's now at $3.30 a gallon, that's well below the 10% threshold of change, correct?
Mhm.
So we know that we'd be receiving some type of funding back, right? A
No,
credit?
no, if we were to go back out to bid,
No, not if we go back out to bid, if we kept with the original.
then, when the price of fuel was 10% less than that 4.8,
Yeah,
then we would receive a credit back.
and how is that credit structured?
It's an actual credit on the bill.
For the actual amount of the gas?
For the price differential.
Okay. So that could be rather hefty credit, possibly?
Potentially. I wouldn't say hefty. We're talking about the magnitude of a couple of thousands of dollars a month.
I think, can I?
Yeah, please.
Because I did have some questions about this, so I emailed Rich for more information. So do you mind if I use some of the numbers from that? Okay. So I was thinking, when we're talking about this amount of money, and granted, when you start talking about millions, sometimes my brain has difficulty wrapping around that, right? Like, especially multi-million at times. So Rich was nice enough to break it down for me what the rates would have been, like in fiscal year 19 versus what it looks like with a current bid. And if we just went to a daily rate per, would be, in FY 19, sorry, I got my contacts in, was $355.75 with 46 buses, right? And the current bid is $465.11 for 39 buses. It's such a huge jump, where we're also talking that we have to go to the boards of selectmen of both towns. We're having an all boards meeting, so we can discuss about all the things just to make us run as status quo. And I don't think we're doing a fiscal service to the towns for the money that we have. And when we only get reimbursed on what, 81 cents per dollar for regional transportation?
That is
If-ish?
subject to volatility, because
Right.
it's subject to state appropriation as well as our ridership survey.
If-ish,
Yep.
if-ish, okay, there's a lot of variables there, and I just don't feel comfortable accepting the bid as is, and then turning around and saying, give us 3 point whatever million extra. Yeah, I just don't.
Ms. Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but what Chair Carmignani is talking about, could in a year's time, because it's such a volatile thing with the gas price, that's in combination with everything? I mean, I've seen the fuel escalators in prior contracts in other districts yield maybe $60,000 to $80,000 off of the entire contract in a year's time with that fluctuation, and I'm giving you a very high end of that. So when you talk about credits, we're looking at maybe if it stays at 3.3 or lower than 10%, you're looking at a $60,000 maybe credit for the year on that fuel escalation. I'm just roughly guesstimating from my past experience in those escalation clauses.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. It's all driven by where fuel actually goes.
Right,
You know,
'cause we-
the number as of January 4th certainly could look different as of today, and/or when we actually put the bid document back out. That number may jump or decrease. And that's part of the gamble there.
I guess
So-
my concern is that if we go out to bid now, the price of the fuel is so low that I'm worried that we're gonna have to pay a differential the other way.
Right, but
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but going out for bid now, we're setting the fuel point at a different spot. So you could pay more, but you could conceivably pay, again, with the escalations, you may not be paying more. But you're setting the escalation point at a different place.
Yeah, and conceptually, first student should be able to pre-purchase their fuel at a cheaper price.
Okay.
Thus achieving savings. Even if
Okay.
you end up paying a little bit in fuel escalation because it
Yeah.
goes up in 3 years,
Okay.
at least, you should have received a level of savings up front. But again, they're such a large company, they may already have their fuel locked in, and their pricing isn't gonna change regardless of
Okay.
what the market's doing.
Okay.
So, again, that's
Yep.
part of the risk.
Yep.
So if we only received 3 bids as it is, so, and that was with the age of the buses at 2020. So if we decrease it by 1 year, how do we know that there's going to be we don't know that there's gonna be any better bids. I don't know, I don't know, I'm not a risk taker. Or a gambler.
I would hope that, you know, the working relationship that we already have with First Student, but that it would open up where it's not so tight and has to be this X bus, that it could be this, so they could stretch more for their own buck, and that might pass over to us as a cost saving.
Madam Chair, I think an important piece here is that Mr. Matthews spent endless amount of hours working with not only any vendor in transportation, but also working with First Student as the award-winning bid to see, you know, in asking, you see he was able to, he was rewarded for his effort by receiving a $50,000 credit over 5 years.
Yes.
But that's in jest, but it is something. But on top of that, Mr. Matthews has been spending a lot of time in dialogue, and so there is a risk with 2019, but there's also probably a small level of confidence with that as well, that there will be. But again, that's one piece out of all the factors that we're trying to put together. So the totality of the risk for going out to bid again is not just one of those items and all those things. It's the combination of everything together. And what they have to figure out what their cost factors will be, whether it's a 2019 bus, the fuel costs, maintenance on top of an older bus, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of factors that they're gonna play with in there to do it. No matter what, it's a risk, period. And I think that the 2019 message is more that, for me, the 2019 message is more that we are changing Dudley Charlton's way of doing transportation by endorsing older buses for transportation. That's probably the biggest piece. The other factor in there, and they're going out for rejecting the bid and going out again, is changing the 2% increase from year to year and trying to spread that out. The risk in that is, plain and simple, you're kicking the can down the road. You know, it's, no matter what, you're still gonna pay this pretty close to what we're not gonna pay the $1 million one bid that came out. Hopefully that isn't how they all come back, but you're still gonna pay within the ballpark of pretty close to where we were with bids. You know, I'm not gonna, the risk is that it's still $500,000 no matter how you look at it. The reward is that we were able to nickel and dime and lower it to an extent that it's more palatable for FY24, and that's the reward from the risk. But it's going to increase it again for it could potentially increase it again for FY25 and FY26. But you have to look at it from the totality of the costs increase in the totality of transporting students. It is a $3.2 million. Am I saying that right? Yes. $3.2 million. That's not. We're not looking at savings to bring that well below $3 million. Through all of these efforts, we're looking at trying to stabilize that and make it palatable for FY24, and our request to the towns to work on our financial structure along with the town financial structures. I hope that I said that right. I believe you did. Okay. But I agree. I'm not. Some of these things I'm not all for risk. Mr. Matthew and I, it's been a great tennis match going back and forth on these. You know, I've tried to do we've done the good cop, bad cop on this, you know, and we still can't come up with this. So as the approving entity to approving the contract, we really need your direction on which way to go.
So, and then just one more for clarification. So whichever way we choose, then what we spend in FY24, whatever reimbursements we get from that we would see that in FY25.
Correct.
To be for part of FY25 transport.
I had a question. At the last meeting, when you brought forward the 3 bids, did you mention that this was the first time we had 3 bids? Typically, we've had less. Is that true?
The last round, we actually had only First Student as a bidder. Back in 2013, there were actually 3 bids that were submitted as well.
Can I ask, did First Student provide the suggestion of going to an older bus?
They indicated that was one of the ways that we could potentially lower the costs.
Okay.
But Mr. Matthews also been working with I keep forgetting the name of the organization, Mass Pupil Transportation?
Mass Association of Pupil Transportation.
Yes.
And
to
what,
see what's out there for trending and stuff like that.
yeah, where are things trending from there, Liz?
When I spoke with them and Mrs. Kavanaugh was gracious to spend over an hour with me on the phone, she indicated that the pricing that we have in the proposed bid is not outrageous. It's not completely outside the pale. But again, it's not so much what that pricing looks like compared to others, it's more how much of an increase it is to us.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know.
So if we do, I'm sorry.
No, go.
If we do reject this now, then that takes away the 50,000, negotiation needs to start from square one.
Yes, yes,
All the
but you
hard
would have
work
the
is-
opportunity to negotiate with the low bidder, when you reach that point as well in the next phase. But I would hope that First Student would incorporate that type of savings into their next bid, if they chose to bid again.
That's a hard one. I'm definitely tossed. I feel like part of me feels like we owe it to we owe it to our taxpayers to try to get the best price that we can get. And then the other part of me's, right, like I hate to gamble. I'm not a gambler.
Yeah. I also feel I understand we have a quorum, but I feel like we're missing other voices that, could potentially help with this decision, too. But
This meeting needs to make a decision,
I know.
unfortunately, because, the bids were opened in December, and we're approaching the timeline for
Okay.
awarding the bid.
Okay.
What happens if it's split 50-50? That vote?
It doesn't pass.
It doesn't pass. And we probably have to have a special meeting, because you have to get one way or the other, right?
I would respectfully request a vote on a different motion,
On a different
or a
motion.
revote on the motion,
Okay,
reconsideration of the motion.
okay. Are you still feeling,
I'm just finding it I'm thinking it through in my head, because my motion was to reject it.
right,
And if people feel split, then it's a possibility it's not gonna pass, because it'll be even. And then we'd have to go for a different motion, and if nothing changes, it'll still be.
right,
I'm gonna say, it. Yeah, I haven't changed my mind.
have you changed your mind? Where are you on yours? You haven't changed your mind?
I don't know, I just feel like all the hard work that's been put into this and what we have is better than the unknown, and then what if they come back without any concessions? I mean, is it enough? Is lowering the age of the bus gonna configure, is it gonna equal the 50,000? Or, overall bid, is it just gonna be a wash? And then there's extra time?
There has
Yeah.
been 2 separate meetings that I've attended with First Student,
Okay.
and my perception is that they would be willing to work with us, is my guess, if we were to change the bid. I mean, from the conversations that were had, they were open to ideas, feedback. They seemed invested in our district at both of those meetings. They were always willing to meet with us and so I think my gut tells me that they would be willing to work. If they see that we're going back out to bid and we've adjusted, our different, key points of like the bus age and whatever, then I would hope that they would also work to adjust their bid as well. So that's my gut feeling, and that's why I feel a certain way.
How long has First Student been our?
Approximately 20 years.
That's what I thought.
Okay,
And they have been a very strong partner with us all the way through, even with the challenges this year. You know, it wasn't, it wasn't, you know, the driver shortages and, you know, the reconfigured routes and all of those things. They weren't because First Student wasn't trying to hire. It was because they said, oh, no, we don't care, it's all right, you know. They were doing everything that they could, including having anybody that was licensed that were working for them out driving buses whenever needed.
And that brings up another point. To Ms. Lamarche's point, the district is a big employer of the two towns, but First Students' employees are also very embedded in the communities too. So although Worcester is a big competitor right now for drivers, there's always, you know, even in my line of work, I could go to Boston and make a lot more money if I head to the city, but there's downfalls. A lot of the drivers in these two towns drive because they want the same schedule as their children. They can bring the children on the bus. So I feel as though First Student also has their employees embedded in our two communities, and it would benefit them to try to get the, you know, bid again. So that's the
I
only
guess
other thought.
my concern too is, as long as, I would vote to reject it as long as I understood that First Student is understanding that we're not rejecting them, we just need.
I have made that absolutely clear,
Okay.
that this would simply be a financial decision if indeed school committee were not to accept the bid.
And I participated in that meeting as well.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote?
So if we vote,
If you vote yes, you're rejecting it, because the motion
Okay.
was to reject the
I
bid.
just want to make sure
Exactly.
we're
Nope.
all clear.
That's, nope, thank you, that's clear.
And I'm clear.
So we have a motion to reject the bid. All those in favor? I'll take a chance. Okay, throw the gamble.
Was
Four.
unanimous?
Passes
Yes.
unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work on that.
Thank you for the consideration. Again, I truly do feel bad that I wasn't able to provide you with an absolute clear recommendation, but you guys experienced it yourself as you went through the conversations. There's no absolutes one way or another, so.
It's up to you.
Okay. Our last item of business is just a report of the curriculum subcommittee. Chair Zella of the subcommittee is not here at this moment. I don't know if, Mr. Ackman, if you want to say anything, I can always pipe in.
Sure.
We had some good conversation.
Sure, so we do have an open house for our middle school math teachers, grades 6 through 8, on January 17th in Plymouth. We do have a contingent going from Dudley Charlton. Additionally, on October 8th, Hillary Paul from the Open SciEd Foundation from Boston College will be presenting to our grades 6 through 8 science educators virtually. On Friday, January 13th in the afternoon, we will have an afternoon of Universal Design for Learning, Professional Development. There'll be a facilitator for elementary, middle, and secondary cohorts. There'll be collaboration time across the district for sister schools. This offering was based largely upon feedback from our last survey from October 7th. Additionally, on the afternoon of Friday the 13th, there will be ALICE training for those that have yet to attend an ALICE session, and there will be Teach Town offered for students, for staff of special education students.
Great.
Oh, can I say something?
Hmm?
Sorry, because you said Teach Town. If you're reading like the Charlton Villager or the Webster Times, it was incorrectly printed as Teach Down, so it's definitely Teach Town.
That's a good
Just
correction.
wanted to
Thank you.
clarify that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Wonderful. Before we just move to adjourn, did anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Before we move to adjournment, I just want to remind everyone again that Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th is a half day because it is a PD day. The Webster Dudley Boys and Girls Club is closed, and I believe that all of the schools have made connections with those families as well as the club. So just keep that in mind. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? And we are adjourned.